Okay, so a small number of countries either constitutionally recognize or strongly protect prenatal life beginning at fertilization, though the legal details vary. For example, El Salvador and Honduras have constitutional language recognizing the right to life from conception and maintain very strict abortion prohibitions. Nicaragua and Dominican Republic also provide constitutional protection for life from conception. The country where I am also provides a constitutional protection for life from conception. Okay. All right. So Malta long maintained one of the strictest regimes in Europe protecting unborn life, though recent reforms introduce limited exceptions. In these systems, the legal framework reflects a view aligned with the natural law position you described, that human life and therefore the right to life begins at fertilization and it deserves state protection from that point forward. Regarding the failure to recognize the right to life, jurisdictions that do not recognize embryonic personhood are not redefining reality, but failing to acknowledge an objective moral fact. Okay, under that framework, the right to life exists independently of legal recognition. Law either protects that right or errs by withholding protection. In other words, the absence of recognition does not negate the right itself. It represents a legal system's misjudgment about when human dignity attaches. Either one agrees with that conclusion, de- depends on whether one accepts the premise that personhood is an intrinsic biological reality rather than a status defined by positive law. All right, so this right supersedes any kind of Canadian system or American system or Chinese system. You know, in China it's really bad over there. They really do control the population quite a lot. Lots of history about that. Japan, right? The women are just not having any children. Korea is really bad. So what I'm trying to say is that there's a serious interference with people's reproduction. There's something, right, that is happening, right? However, there is the right to life, and whether you recognize that or not, whether the government recognizes that or not, it is certainly existent and it is certainly tangible. The right to life is certainly something that cannot be, either if you don't recognize it, you're violating it, right? You're violating this right. Okay, it doesn't matter, how many guns the government guys have, right? You're violating the right to life. The right to life begins at some arbitrary stage in development. I think it develops at 9 weeks, or I think it just starts after the baby's born, right? That's nonsense. Why put some arbitrary, why even suggest it, right? If you're just be honest about it, right? We are not, and they will try everything. They will try, well, I think it starts when the heartbeat. Okay, when the heartbeat. Okay, well, why even pretend anymore? Like, why should we even pretend? Okay, so either you recognize the right to life that is existent, or you're wrong and you violate the right to life, the most basic fundamental right that anybody has, that is certainly there, whether you acknowledge it or not. It's like the sky, like it's like the sun, it's going to be there, whether you acknowledge it or not, or the Lord Jesus Christ, right? He's going to be there until you acknowledge or not acknowledge, right? It's not going to be, going away, right? This is not leaving just because you don't acknowledge it, right? So the right to life has been granted by God, right? And God gave us the right to life when that DNA was, intelligently designed, right? So for a government to, like, who's this government anyway? Just a whole bunch of guys that got together and they started to, get a whole bunch of money, and it's like some big corporation. That's all it is, right? And they're gonna sit there and tell me that my son didn't have the right to life simply because of his early embryonic stage, I forget what their nonsense argument is, but he certainly had the right to life. My son had the right to life, and they violated my son's right to life by killing killing my son, my own family, right? Went to medical school and decided to become this practitioner of dark arts that would suppress the natural fertility of a woman, right? That she's not even sick or anything, and they gave that to my kid's mom, right? We had two kids, right? My you know even if it didn't cause early embryonic death, right? What business did she have to get between us and to get between the man and the woman? I hate to say it, but I wasn't married. There was certainly a reason for that. I was not married, but anyway, what business does she have to get between us and to inhibit, right? To let, if you will, uh, that natural female fertility, right? What business did she have to interfere with my reproduction? Right? Even if it didn't suppress. If it didn't cause the early embryonic death, which it did, even if it didn't, what business did she have to suppress a natural bodily function, right? It's just creepy. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.